Hi, welcome back to another episode of Revolutionary Detox. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We're so glad to have you. For those that don't know me, my name is Giselle Ureña, and I am so excited for this episode because maybe something that draw you into this channel was one of the pillars that I have in my banner. I say personal development, professional development, lifestyle. But for this a specific episode, we're gonna really focus and hone into our professional development. And I think it's so necessary to not only tap into our personal goals and aspirations and purpose, but I think there is also so much that intertwines between the both, right? So what is professional development? Well, I brought the perfect person to speak about this topic, and she is a queen that I have been looking into. She is so inspiring and so wise, but beyond I can even let me tell you, she wears so many hats and she has walked so many paths in terms of her career and even personal journey, and I think you would learn so much from her. So please help me welcome Catherine.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.
And I think it would actually be great to just start with how we met.
Please, you take it away.
So we met through the Leadership Brainery, that is an organization that looks to work with aspiring BIPOC and minoritized young people, aspiring career professionals who are looking to go into all fields, whether they be law, medicine, business, education, and really looks to prepare them, truly prepare them, not just give them a workshop, but really look at what is the mentoring, what is the uplifting that needs to be done in a way that we can increase generational wealth, that we can bring ourselves to the table and not just to sit there, to actually have a voice and to take action. And so I met the beautiful Queen Giselle, who came to one of our info sessions, and the rest is history. She's been an incredible supporter of the Leadership Brainery, of which I am just so fortunate to have traveled through being a higher ed partner with them. I met Derek in 2018 and then went on to become their inaugural director of equity implementation.
Yes, she
and
is.
now they're co-chair of their board. So
that's amazing.
I'm excited that that is the common ground with which we found ourselves meeting each other, which is pertinent to the topic that we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Catherine, why don't you tell them a little bit more about you before we get started on the whole career development topic?
Sure. You know, whenever I do presentations or interviews or introduce myself, I think it's really important for me to say that I come from an ancestral heritage of strong Asian American Chinese women. I had 3 great-grandmothers when I was born and who lived through my teenage years, with the oldest one passing away at 102.
Wow.
And I was able to have meals with them. The story goes that as the eldest in my family, that instead of babysitting the little ones on Sunday dinner, I would go hide in the kitchen. But in the kitchen, I not only learned the secrets of their recipes, but I heard their stories of what it meant to come from China on a boat to a better life and what it meant to do that struggle along with that joy. I'm originally from the island of Hawaii and grew up there, and came out to the East Coast for college and have not left.
Wow.
And my career has traveled many different paths. And so I love that you're using the word professional development, because it's how we continue to define our profession. That I started out as an art major, moved on into both psychology, counseling, and leadership. And now I am the proud owner of my own business, where I am calling it Catherine Wong Consults, Education, Training, and Research, with the idea of what does it mean to bring my K through 12th grade through higher ed experience together and really work to build up our young people so they can see their own brilliance. That I have been, a school counselor, a classroom teacher. I have worked internationally on cross-cultural education, and I've been a program director and clinical faculty in both school counseling and teacher education. And so, there's no one right path that I followed. I said to Giselle when we talked that what I follow is that I want to continue to work with young people. I believe they are the strength of our society going forward. That what does it mean for us to create opportunities again, to increase their generational wealth, to increase their impact. And so my work centers on that, where now I'm able to both run my own business, but I also am the associate director for the Institute for Recruitment of Teachers,
Wow.
which also trains and works with aspiring educators from K-12 through the professoriate.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I'm just as busy as you are, I
Oh
feel.
wow. I mean, do you see why? I tell you, that's the perfect person to talk to when we're speaking about the development of our professional lives and our career paths. So before we even get started a little bit deeper on the whole career and professional development portion, I want to really make the foundational atmosphere for this interview that means there is not no one way.
Correct.
There is not
Yes.
one path. So why don't you speak a little bit more on that?
I think, we sort of grow up with this idea that we have to pick sort of one career, one college major. We then have to follow one career path. And I think that that's a misnomer. I think that we should have the freedom to think about not just what is our purpose, but what is our passion? And what is it that we want to be known for? What is like, I feel like part of career and professional development is sort of stepping back a minute and think about what is the legacy that you want to leave behind for the next generation. And when I think about the way that I teach and the way that I lead, is that often it's the ways that that wasn't done for me. So how can I be present to young people in a way that teachers were and were not at times present for me? How can I lead in such a way where parent conferences are not about telling parents what is wrong with their child. Parent conferences should be about asking parents, what was the last thing you taught your little one? And how can we work together? Because educators come in all forms. And I think that's the beauty and why I've stayed in education for so long, is that I really want to push that we are all teachers and students. We all are teachers and learners. Learning happens continuously all of our lives. And so as I think about the foundation of this, again, right, that there is not that sort of one path, for me is a very colonized way of thinking, that it really sort of puts up walls and barriers that doesn't allow you to say, well, I can do this and that. Not that I have to choose either or.
Yes. Woo. And then that's it. We don't have to talk anymore. We can close. You hear that? There is no one way, or you have to be picking one or the other. For me, don't you see? I am a whole software engineer, graduated from Brandeis with a computer science and business degree, but this is also part of my professional career.
Exactly.
My professional path. I love hosting. I love bringing a platform for people like you, like me, to learn and grow and hear different perspectives and know that you are not alone and that people are willing to help. I love to paint. I could paint. I was a makeup artist once upon a time. Those are all part of my professional development journeys. Okay, as to the end of journeys, there's different parts to your journey. I want to ask you then, what is professional development? What is career development? How can you define that and summarize it?
I think, I think in threes. So I think that when I think about career and professional development, I think about it in the form of, what is it that you want to initiate in your life?
Yes.
What is it that then you want to be able to innovate? And then from there, what is it that you need to institutionalize both within your intellect and your heart? So I think that, yes, it's not a book definition, but I often believe in life definitions. What is it that makes the most sense for you? And I loved what you just said, right? That being a software engineer and doing this creative work is a both and. It's not that, and I'm sure there are folks that say, oh, well, that's your side gig, Giselle, right?
No, it's not.
And I think that it's your main gig, and if there's ways that you can I think for me, I am a poet, I am a writer, I'm a storyteller. I come from a storyteller culture. We talk story, as we say in Hawaii. And I have been able to weave that through all of my work. That as I bring in, when I was working at Boston College and running the Donovan Urban Teaching Scholars Program, we infused a lot of storytelling into the work, because how do we think about the stories that raised us to think about being a teacher? What are the stories that our young people come to school with that are often deficit-based? How do we shift those stories and say to a young person, for example, I would say to my young people, I also ran a youth justice program at the college, and I would say to the young people, how many of you, for example, speak another language? And I didn't purposely say, how many of you are second English language learners? I just simply said, how many of you speak more than one language? And when the hands went up, I said, well, y'all got linguistic capital. And there is a researcher by the name of Dr. Tara Yosa who writes this up. So that also, I'm lifting you up with some research. And the young people were like, I said, you're a global citizen of the world.
That's
and when
right.
you think about the kind of work you're going to do and the kind of jobs you're going to go for, that on your resume, that's going to be a strength.
Yes.
That is not seen as something that, oh, you don't know that language. Oh, you don't know English. And I said, in the work that we do together, I'm not going to allow that language.
That's
what
right.
I'm going to allow is you walking through hallways, telling people all the languages you speak and
Yes.
and then we're going to learn from each other.
Yes.
But again, I think that we have, and so I think that for me, that was where I was able to infuse my love of storytelling into the rest of my work.
Yes.
And so we would do storytelling rounds with the young people. I would set up prompts. And so I would say, all right, even to the, teachers in the room, how many of you have ever written prose or spoken word? And, 3 hands go up. And I said, well, then you're all going to do that today.
That's right.
And here's 6 prompts. Y'all can go to whatever part of the room you need. So again, I never taught in rows. I often say that looking at the back of someone's head is not conducive to learning.
Woo!
So I would always teach in the round. And what I would say to the young people, as I get older, I can't move furniture. So y'all need to redo the room yourself. But again, right, it was building, and some of that was, I could move the furniture, but what I wanted to do was get the community involved, so that as soon as they came in the room, they were just like, they would move the desks out, they would put a circle together, and again, the understanding was, we need to leave it the way we found it for
That's
the next
right.
person.
That's
Because
right.
the next person coming in is going to want to see their rows back.
That's right.
But I felt that in the moments that I had with young people, or that I had with aspiring teachers, that we could teach in the round. That teaching in the round for me was dismantling that power hierarchy.
That's right.
That, I would often at UMass Boston, where I taught before BC, is I would bring my young people from the school system I was also working in. So yes, I've never held one job ever. And I would bring the young people and I would say to them, you're professors for the night. I'm going to sit in the back of the room. You're going to sit up front.
Yes.
And you're going to tell these school counselors or these aspiring teachers how you learn best and what does not engage you in the classroom.
That's right.
And my young people would be like, can we be really honest? I'm
That's
like,
right.
well, that's why I'm bringing you to class. And you're all going to introduce yourselves, and you're going to have the chalk, back when we had chalk, that you're going to have the chalk, the eraser, but basically the floor is yours. And it would be some of the best classes we ever had, because again, why are we creating this type of education if we're not including the very young people who are going to be served by it?
Woo! Another drop mic. Wow. I mean, I want you to also expand on knowing that it's okay if you choose one way, right? So this interview is not to, what's that word? Kind of exclude anyone.
No. So
what can you expand on that? It's okay if you only pick one thing.
I think, part of it is the issue of choice. As you think about what drives you, what is the impact that you want to have, and you want to specialize in one thing, learn it well, do it well before you branch out to the next. that is incredibly okay. Like there
Yes.
is no one sort of path in the way that we're raised to think about career, to think about profession, to think about work. I think that in many ways, these multiple pandemics have changed the way that we think about the world of work. And how do we think about the impact that we want to make? How do we, for families that have been impacted by the loss of employment, how do, certain family members become wage earners in ways they had not thought they had to be? And so I think that I don't want people walking away from this thinking that there is a defined path that you and I are communicating, as much as what we're saying is we want the doors open and we want you to see that if you're doing one thing now and then you choose to do another thing later, that is, that's okay. And that part of it is time is precious. And so how you think about your time and how even you balance your time, I think that, we talk a lot about self-care, but, sometimes doing activism work is self-care. So I think that it's also the way that we think, that balance also is not defined in one way either. The way that we
Yes.
think about our life's work can be also seen with multiple pathways attached.
Yes. And can you explain a little bit more also on the tension behind age? You just talked about timing. Timing is precious. But then there's some people that think, oh, because I'm this age, I can no longer make an entire shift in my career life or professional life. So can you speak on that?
I can speak on it by just saying I just did it. So, I have spent my entire career up until 2 years ago in institutions, right? I was in a K-8 school for 16 years. I then went on into, a thriving career in higher ed for over 20. And I made a decision in the August of 2020 that I wanted to have greater societal impact. That, as we all know, that the August or summer of 2020, there was a lot going on in the world of injustice, in the world of the pandemic. And I really felt that I felt really called to enter a crossroad. And was it scary? Absolutely. Did I have a sort of defined path of what I was going to do next? No. But I also felt in my heart of hearts that I trusted that the next would come and that I just needed to allow my heart to be open. And it was within a few weeks of stepping away from the university that Derek and Jonathan from the
Wow.
leadership Brainery, we co-crafted this director of equity implementation that allowed me to work with them to infuse equity at every juncture
Wow.
of their organization, which is, again, one of the reasons that I stepped away was to be able to do this work in a
Yes.
liberatory way, and felt that I wanted to stay connected to higher ed, but that I wanted to do it from a different place. And
Awesome.
so this issue of age was that, right? So, there were folks going, well, aren't you going to just stay in institutions and retire because, you're getting closer to that age? Or, why don't you just find another university? Or why don't you could go back into K-12. And I know all of that was said to me with the best of intent. And so I didn't read it as an insult. I didn't read it as something that was hurtful. But I also knew that I was ready to look for something different, and
Yes.
that I knew that those doors were still open. So I
Yes.
also said that if the right fit, right job in K-12 or in higher ed came to me, that I certainly would look at it, explore it, step into it. But I also didn't want to say just
Yes.
because I'd worked in institutions since the start of my career that that's where I had to stay, or
Yes.
educational institutions, that that's where I had to stay.
Wow.
And I could not be happier as to where I am now.
Wow.
And with the staff I get to work with at the Institute for Recruitment of Teachers, the being able to connect with the Brainery that leads me
Yes.
to incredible people like yourselves.
Thank you.
And then through my own business of, being able to develop relationships, across the country and getting back into my international work.
Oh my God, this is so good. So if the person that's watching right now, it's someone that is very early in their career path, right? Let's
Yes.
say let's say the viewer right now is someone that maybe hasn't finished high school. You know, maybe they are already in their 20s, but they didn't get their high school diploma. Can you talk on the ways that just because you don't have a certain degree or certification or whatever, that doesn't limit you from excelling in your professional path? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, part of it is, right, is there, again, it comes back to this motto today, right, that there is no one right way to do this. And so, if you're a viewer in high school, if you were a viewer that's early in college, part of it is, looking at job ads, looking at talking to, staying on Giselle's channel and, listening to the guests that she bring on and hearing their path. And don't be afraid to reach out. I often say
That's
that
right.
you don't have to wait for the job interview to go and interview the job. And so the idea is that, again, we've been socialized to believe that, oh, we got to wait till, that person calls us and then we got to dress up and then we got to go to the interview versus you could, check them out first. You could go and say, I want to learn a little bit more about your organization. I saw, whether it be an ad or I was scoping through websites and I saw your website. And, what I'll coach people is pick something, 2 or 3 things out of the website, give a cold call and say, I saw this. I'd love to learn a little bit more. Or, I'd like to know if you have you have positions to volunteer, because one of the best ways to learn about an organization is to volunteer for it. And that, from volunteering comes could come stipend or paid opportunities. I know that, as I think about grad assistants that I've hired or young people who have, moved from internship to career, started out as an intern or started out as a volunteer. But in that way, too, if you volunteer at 2 or 3 places, you get to see how different organizations work.
Yes.
You get to see how the leadership lead, because, again, leading is also not done in any one way, and it has to align and speak to you. Are you someone that wants to follow and have sort of a path laid out and you get to try it out and then make suggestions? Are you a creator that wants to be in a team that sees you sort of as part of a collective leadership model? Yes. And so you may not be able to discern that in the moment, but I think being open to again, taking a look, what's out there. And again, there are opportunities to ask for mentorship with someone who, again, may be in a field that you're thinking about. So again, asking and going into these organizations doesn't necessarily need to commit you, but it allows you to open the doors wider.
Yes, that's so good because you touched upon three things that I think are so important, which is mentorship, network, volunteering, doing things not just for money. And then four is that believing, right? Believing that you're capable of getting that opportunity, even when the statistics or even when data says, oh, you're not qualified. Okay, no, you are qualified no matter what. So what would be a strategy that you can give these people so that they can tackle and really go after their development in terms of their professional lives? Like, what is it that they can do in terms of network, in terms of mentorship, in terms of all of that? Like, what's the strategy that you got?
I think, different strategies are, looking at, what kinds of opportunities does your local community center offer? What kinds of resources does your local library have? And so, there are those of you that might want to just sort of search through websites and see what pops out. There are those of you that feel like, what, I really want an in-person meet. And so, community centers offer a range of events.
Yes.
The Leadership Brainery offers a range of events as we help aspiring professionals think about their what next.
Yes.
being able to think and talk with leaders in the fields that are of interest. Museums, I mean, all of these things can be accessed free of charge as well. I've often said that, as a high school student, as a college student, use those, free privileges to, take a look at what is out there, and be able to not be afraid to ask questions. I think that, there is no, again, question that is not of value. That if you want to learn more about something, or you want to ask someone, simply, you could start with, when you preview an organization,
Yes.
is to ask the person, like, how did you choose this career? What path did you take? Did you change majors in the middle of college? Did you maybe think that you weren't ready to go to college right after high school? What did you do in between? And, I think that there are a number of websites that have some of these starter questions, so that, again, the web can be a beautiful place at times.
That's
where
right.
you could type in sort of a subject matter, or, starter questions for an informational interview, and up will pop. And what you do basically is you take a look, and you don't need to use all of them. Figure out the ones that will allow you to use your own voice.
Yes.
Or you might decide, what, I want to see what it looks like with those who speak other languages. And so, I'm going to look for organizations that also sponsor that or support that. And again, our communities have, different nonprofit organizations that, again, are looking to spread the word, as they say. And this could be a way to step in and learn more.
Yeah.
No matter what age you are.
Exactly. And what about, you went to school for, what was it again?
So I went to school, my bachelor's is in art and art history,
Right.
and my graduate degree is in counseling psychology.
Exactly. There is such a big difference, right? So what do you have to say to those people that maybe feel bad because they're not doing what they studied, right? Like, it's okay.
Not only is it okay, but that you're always being influenced by what you're learning. And
That's
so
right.
often what I'll say is, I'm a visual learner, and that my art major is not for naught. That I will work with, when I teach from a visual context. When I think about the ways that I even want to do my PowerPoints, it's how I choose the colors, it's how I choose the branding. But also just the idea of analyzing art is always with me. What am I seeing? How am I seeing it? What am I missing in this picture? What are the gaps in terms of learning that I'm missing? I'm having trouble reaching a student. What am I missing? Go back, what do I need to relook at? And so the ways that I even think about my life is through this art lens. And then, my counseling degree, I know that I would not be here without it. That the way that I think of myself as a leader is that I define it by, first, that I start with caring for the people I work with. And so, I was saying to you when we spoke that when I would hire graduate assistants, that instead of getting into these formal interview questions, I would simply first ask them, you're here for this particular program. What is it you see yourself doing 5-10 years out from the degree? And, they would look at me like, well, we're waiting for the, you're going to hire us for a GA-ship. And what I say is, so they would tell me, and I would say, great, because we're going to co-construct this graduate assistantship so that we can meet the kinds of skills that you're saying you need in order to go out into the world. And then we're also going to craft it in a way that I know that there's certain work that needs to get done.
Yes.
But there's a way that we can do this blend so that you walk away with a set of skills that you may not have had when you came in. And so I think that, this idea of being a counselor first, but then moving into the different leadership roles that I've had, is, one, comes from a place of care. It also comes from a place of courage, because asking people to be vulnerable and sharing their lives with you, either by story or by the written word or by the vocal word or the artistic word, that creates a level of courage and trust. And so I think that for me, being able to counsel from a place of courage, from a place that I believe in you, I know that I need to learn more about you in order to be of assistance.
Wow.
And the last for me is connection. That, you know, how do we build connection with even those that we feel we have no connection to? And so this idea of I know that my cross-cultural counseling degree, I know that shouting out this incredible mentor who brought me into the counseling world, because it wasn't necessarily a career I had thought of for myself, was Patricia Arredondo, who was running the cross-cultural counseling program at Boston University at the time, and literally opened the doors to what that field was to me. And I had been doing some peer counseling at my undergrad, and the counseling director had said, oh, you know, have you ever thought about a career in counseling? And I said, you haven't talked to my family. They have already written my script. I come from a very traditional Chinese family. I'm supposed to be a lawyer. And she smiled and she said, here's Patricia's business card. Go into Boston University, have a chat with her, and then we'll talk about the law degree.
Wow.
And so I did, and just fell in love with the idea of what it meant to work with young people, to help families. And so I didn't tell my family at first. I applied to the program, got in. You know, it was back in the day, I know I'm a little bit older, that the phone calls to Hawaii were really expensive. And so I got my acceptance letter to Boston University, called home. Hi, Mom. I got into graduate school at Boston University. And she's like, oh, they have a great law school. And I'm like, I need to tell you something. I actually am getting a graduate degree in counseling.
Wow.
And she was just like, oh, okay. And there was some, you know, difficult conversations going forward, but we worked it out. And at the end, you know, I was a few years into teaching and counseling. And I just said to her, you know, Mom, I get to wake up every day and do what I love and love what I do. And I'm still able to support, I'm able to send money home to you. I'm able to pay my rent. I was able to buy a beat up, you know, used car so I could get from point A to point B. And so I was okay, right? Like, I was not making the salary of a lawyer, but I wasn't looking to do that. I was looking to have the kind of impact through a passion that had been opened to me by a mentor, and who to this day continues to be my mentor.
Wow, that's so good. One of the things I want to go back to that you mentioned was how no matter if you're not doing what you majored or got your degree in, you are what you learn, right? That
You're influenced by
you're
it.
influenced by it. And I want you to speak on how people, whatever they're doing right now, they can find purpose in it, whether that's not going to be their forever thing. Can you speak on that?
You know, I think that the idea of purpose is, again, as you were saying, right? Like, how do you, for example, go on and use your degree as a software engineer, knowing that it's really important that women and women of color are underrepresented in STEM, so that there's a level of modeling that you're setting there, but also this passion of being able to do these interviews so that your audience gets to see the wide range of professions that are out there, the wide range of activism that we're doing in order to be who we are in this world. That I think that the idea of being able to not just settle on that one, and to know that your purpose is, again, this legacy setting. Like, what is it that you want to be known for as you move through your life? What is it that, as you look back and the generation that's coming up behind you and that's coming up behind them, what is the impact that you want to have? And, you know, we need folks in all fields. So there's no one career or professional field that should be looked down upon or higher than the other.
That's true. That's so good. There was one person asked me once, say, when I was in college, like, oh, I never thought you would ever be a software engineer, or like you would ever be this and that. Like, and I was just like, and then they said, are you doing it for the money? Are you doing it? And I was stuck. I didn't know what to say, right? I was like, am I really doing it for the money? What am I doing it for? But then I realized that even if this was not my quote unquote passion, because we all can have many passions, I knew something within the STEM world. I knew something
Yes.
within technology. There was a calling for me, even if it wasn't for me to be behind a screen at all the times. Maybe that's the start of the journey, but there was something more that I'm meant to be doing in this field. And I want you to, whoever's watching, please know that even if you don't understand what you're doing it for or why, if you are there, it's not by accident. So maximize it and really find a way to take value from it so it can
Yes.
get you to the next step, you know? So how did you, what's the strategy, going back to the strategies, because I think actionable steps are so crucial, right? So what are some actionable steps that you can give these people that are in that space where it's like, I know this is not what I love. I know this is not, but how can I make it work for me and to get me to where I want to be?
I think a strategy is being able to define your why. So, if you know why you're doing it in this moment, what, and forever, however long. So this idea of that, the person who questioned you, I feel was sort of imposing what they thought you were doing versus asking you why you were doing it, right? So often when we say, it's the way that we ask the question. And so, a strategy is really to sit and reflect, why are you doing what you're doing in this moment? And again, knowing that it doesn't have to define you for, 30 something years. And it can. I mean, I know classroom teachers who have chosen to stay in the classroom for their entire career because they feel that is where they want to make the difference. And so I think that, so that's one, is to really give yourself space and time to think about what is that why.
Yes.
I think the second is to allow figure out who your allies are, so that those that judge you are not allies. Those that impose what they're thinking you should do are not allies. Allies are there for you 24/7. Allies are able to push back at you, but they push back in a way that they're asking critical questions. They're asking the why questions. They're asking, for example, right? Giselle, how are you blending, the audios and the YouTube channel with your software engineer training, right? That's very different than, why are you doing both? Can you really fit it in? So you see that tone difference and that idea of how we think about who our allies are. I think the pandemic has also changed who we get to define as allies. And so this idea of, surrounding yourself, knowing that sometimes your best allies may not always be in your place of work. And that, how do we find those professional spaces that allow us to truly be who we are? Because I also feel that, as women of color, I feel that it's important that we walk in a world that we can be unapologetic. And so where is that space? And so if work is not that space, then where is it? Is it forming collectives? Is it, forming intergenerational collectives? But this idea of being able to find space where you can sort of completely be yourself without being inhibited with, do I have to watch what I say? Is it going to end up on the internet? And so where is it that we can find that? And again, it's less about being comfortable than it is about being free.
Yes.
And then my third is being able, again, to be in a place of questioning, to be able to say that not only do you need to be able to ask questions of others, but what are the questions that you need to ask yourself? And is there a way that you can say, start the day with an intention where you're able to say to yourself that you are brilliant, that smart is, how do we define smart? Often we just give it a book definition, but smart is being able to navigate the world. And so how are you navigating the world? What is it that you want to learn today? And it can be just one thing. It can be, I'm going to learn how to get through my list and make it more manageable. to, I'm going out, I'm going to have a great conversation with a friend that I have not been able to see since the beginning of the pandemic.
Yes.
So being able to plan joy in your life, I think that, so often these pressures of life allow us to don't allow us to be in a place where we can capture those moments of joy even throughout our workday.
That's so good. That is so good. I really hope that there is something that you took away from this interview, because if there's anything I can say, I don't even want to summarize it. I kind of just want to tell you, if there's anything you take away from this interview, is to know that you don't have to do it alone, to seek that support, that help, because there's always someone that's willing to help and guide you. And second of all, it is okay where you are. It does not matter your background. It does not matter your professional background. It does not matter whatever it is. There is no one way, no one path to do it. You can always shift. You can always master. You can always improve whatever it is that you're doing. So please take this interview, rewatch it, reflect, journal, and really seek out help. Speak up, because you matter and we need you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have one quote in Hawaiian
Yes.
that I think sort of ties this all together, and I didn't want to sort of lose the word. So, and in Hawaiian, we only have 12 letters in our alphabet, so we pronounce every single one of them. It goes, Aohe pakaiki ikahalau ho'akai. All knowledge is not taught in the same school. One can learn from many sources. And so that is, the message that I hope all of you take today. I want to, in Hawaiian, we say mahalo nui loa, which is thank you very much. And we actually never say goodbye. We say ohui ho. So again, I hope that you will tune in and that you will continue to watch this beautiful queen.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for watching. And please don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and leave your comment below, and share this with the loved ones, because let's keep the movement going. What is it?
Ahui ho.
Ahui ho. Till next time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.